Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
All right, welcome to Getting to Know You. Today we're talking to Susan Novotny and Melissa Batalin from the Troy Bookmakers. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over. Troy Bookmakers, obviously what we're going to talk about first is the difference between self-publishing and publishing on demand. And then you just told me you like to think of yourself as printers. So why don't you talk about what this is, self-publishing, publishing on demand, and some of what Troy Bookmakers actually does. So.
Well, self-publishing, anybody can do it. You just dream up a name for the name of your publishing company, and you have your book, and you can go out and do it offset printing, which is a lot of copies at one time, and which is, is fairly economical that way because it brings the price down. However, you might find yourself at the end of it with 700 copies in your garage you don't know what to do with. So that's and publishing on demand or print on demand, or what we call ourselves books on demand, because books is really...
Books on demand sounds even better.
Yes, is close to my heart. So it's all about the book for me, and is digital printing, so that you only have to print a few copies at a time to meet the demand that you have out there, and rather than invest your money in a whole lot of books.
So as you go, if you can, a couple of months later, if you need 50 more copies, they just come, I need 50 more, and that's it. Okay.
Our minimum order is actually only 10, so we can print anywhere from 10 into the thousands, but you don't really need to get 1,000 all at once. You can.
All right. What is your typical book? Some of your books are here that we'll be showing on the screen as we talk, but what would the typical average one of your Troy Bookmakers books start out with? Like, how many copies would they?
It really ranges between, usually 20 to 50 books is a good start, because we encourage you to start with a small number, because one of the great things about print on demand is that you can make some little tweaks and changes in between, so that you're not stuck with 10,000 books in your garage that have a typo in the dedication or something that you might have missed.
And then obviously some of your books aren't really made to be sold, are they? I notice a big thing is like family histories or books maybe a teacher might use for their class. I mean, they may have to pay for them, but they're not going to be sold in stores or anything.
Right. Not all of them have retail potential. And, most people that come into us are very realistic about what the demand will be for their book. It's either going to be within my family. We're going to do an Italian cookbook, and we're going to sell it at the family reunion, and that's 50 people there. Or it's a memoir, and that are going to pass around the family at a family reunion. Or then we do have people that come in that feel they've written the great American novel, or they've got a wonderful collection of poetry that really do want to circulate and get out there to the public as much as they can. And and we do very practical things like textbooks, a calculus textbook, or a hospital manual. So it's a broad range of printing.
And then you
projects.
you were telling me that, I know you're based in Troy. You print for people all over the country. Is that okay? Well, that's good.
Yep, that's how I got started with this, as owning the book house and the Market Block Books. I was very, very close to the number of people that were coming in to the store that had gone online to any of the multitude of print-on-demand internet experiences that they could have out there, and then I felt that they were being, terribly mistreated and taken advantage of, and I felt, well, if can't beat them, join them.
Yes,
I'll do it myself.
That was my next question.
So
why did you start the Troy Bookmakers?
And it was really just an entrepreneurial opportunity for me. I saw that it was possible. You go out and you buy the equipment and find the space for it and find the talent that can put it together, and you just take the vision and make it more personal, make it more local, so that the people can trust you in a way they can't trust our competitors on the internet.
Now, how many people work over there in Troy Bookmakers?
We have between 3 and 4 people on staff. It kind of fluctuates depending on the amount of jobs that we're doing. Because right now we have about 40 different projects that we're working on.
40 different books
Yeah.
at once? Okay.
Yeah,
So I guess on your website, thetroybookmakers.com, people can go to that. So one of your services is like designing and editing and all that. Are they not full-time employees, or they sort of work on a?
well, what we do in-house, we do certain things in-house at the Troy Bookmakers, but for editing and marketing services, we really leave it to professional freelancers that have been doing this for 20, 30 years and can really just do it right the first time.
So would the author hire them, or do you guys do that?
We just let the author deal with that because that way we're not a middleman, and it keeps the prices down for the author. So it works well because that way we don't have to have a gigantic staff. There's a core number that our authors all know that when they call
work
up
with.
they can talk to one of us.
Okay. Now, Susan, you said one of the reasons you started that you run the book house in Stuyvesant Plaza, which everyone knows. But when you said people come in, you had all these stories of. Do people actually come into bookstores and say to you, like, how do I get my book published?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all the time. Yeah, there was one week where I had probably 8 of them in a week, and I said, "This is an opportunity for me."
Well,
So,
down here at the library,
Yeah.
we get a lot of questions from people coming in. How do I get my? So you feel you're filling this niche, I guess you could say, in the
Yep.
world.
Yeah, we have an awful lot of happy authors out there now.
So, what would be a typical? I know you have a lot. We got some books here. How many do you have? How many have you published so far?
We've done a little bit over 120 or 130
All right, so you've done 100.
books.
So out of the 100, is it literally a little of everything? Could you say? I mean, I'm looking through some
Yeah.
of these books. You have
Well-
poetry, you have memoirs, you have history.
I'd say, of the 120 titles, I'd say only about 80 of them were offered for sale at all. So that leaves, about a third, over a third are all just family histories or personal projects that are Christmas gifts
And the
or
rest, the authors are.
putting them up for
trying to
sale. So, and they're anything from novels, poetry, collections of short stories, to memoirs and textbooks. And we even do some full color printing. So one of the books that is up there is My Place on Earth, which has
Is that
photos. Yep. It has photos by John Katz and poetry by Mary Kellogg.
Okay, this has color photography in it.
Yep. So that one's, but we really specialize in book printing of all sorts, but usually.
Well, when we show these on the screen, these are all very well designed. You guys designed all these, the Troy Bookmakers? Oh, they're all very nice. So tell us about, if an author was to go to the Troy Bookmakers or to use your services, I guess, tell us about this process. And I know that I'm really simplifying this, but on your website basically says, give us your formatted content and we'll print your book for you. But obviously there's more to it than that. So run us through what an author would do. Say the book's already written. I know probably people come, it's not even written yet, but say they have the book already written and they come to you. What would the steps be?
Well, we really let the author do as much or as little as they would like. If they have someone in the family that's actually an artist, they can have someone in the family put together the cover and give it to us ready to go. So it can really be a collaborative effort and kind of fun for the author. Or they can just hand us a disc that has their digital file of their manuscript on it and say, make it a book.
So then what
and
would...
I don't really care what it looks like.
All right, let's
we've done that too.
All right, so say someone comes in. Is that a disc? Would that be a book that you have there?
Yep.
So there's a whole book on that, okay. So say someone comes in, make this a book. What would the next steps be?
We actually sit down with them and talk to them about the options they have. They can choose, what their cover should look like, what the interior of the book looks like. They can even customize it. And then they can also choose additional services like websites, the ISBN and barcode for the back cover. So we do the copyright submission too if they want us to.
Oh, get an ISBN number?
Yep.
Okay.
So we really let them customize the process to whatever
Now-
they need it to be. And that way it's not thousands of dollars that they don't really need to be spending. Because if you're making a cookbook for your family, you don't need a barcode. You don't really
That's true.
need to do a lot of those things. You can have someone in your family put it together. So we really try to make it, it's all about the author actually having a lot of
So
control.
the author has to the author, so everyone watching, the author has to do a lot of work, is what
Absolutely not, because they can just come in with the disc and say, "This is what I want.
Yeah.
I like blue, so my cover is going to be blue," and we will take the rest of it from there. We'll help them make those decisions. We'll lay it all out for them, and then they just get a proof. They approve the proof,
Okay.
and it goes to print.
So
There's actually not a lot for the author to do. It's really
well, one
up
thing
to
I
the
want to
author
ask about,
decide.
is there proofreading? Do they have to make sure it's do they have to make sure it's lined up? Do they make sure the spelling? I mean, is it all assumed correct, or does the author have to do that, or do you guys do that, or?
The author is expected to do that, and we can refer them to freelance editors that we work with, and all of those people are local as well. So we really try to make it, we're very customer centric. We really want the author to have a good experience.
No, I noticed on your webpage, you guys also, you have, your books are in, is it 3 local bookstores? You'll say you'll put them in? Is that what?
Yep, it's in the Book House and in Market Block Books, our store in downtown
Troy.
Troy, and also the Book Loft over in Great Barrington, because Eric Wilska, the owner of that store, is one of the financial partners in the Troy Bookmakers.
So now that you've explained what happens, let's just, as an example, simple, on your webpage, they talk about, I think I read a newspaper story, you have this machine that prints a book in 8 minutes. I mean, tell us about that. That seems very fascinating to me. I mean, everything, cover, bound, collated, all put together, it comes out like this in 8 minutes. Tell us about that machine.
Well, there's a printer, and then there's another gizmo.
It's about as big as they were saying. It's about as big as
it doesn't
a
take up
dining room
much
table.
room, and then there's another gizmo that kind of shuffles all the pages together to get them nice and good straight right angles, and then we dip it into glue, and then we cut it up and slap a cover around it, and it's.
So you're calling it
I got the order a little bit
Yeah.
off, but
so if you're calling it a gizmo, you're not the technical person, I think.
I'm not. But
All right, well,
It is a very simple
I looked at it and
process.
said, I can do this. That's
so all right, say someone say they wrote the great American novel, and they wanted to print 250 copies. How much would something like that cost? And say they had their own cover, it's all set to go, and say 250 copies.
There's still a lot of other things that we need to know before we can
Okay.
just throw out a number. It really comes down to the page count, the book
Oh, okay.
size, and then all of our authors actually have options of the kind of paper stock that they want on the interior
okay.
of the book.
Well, else on your webpage, there's you do have a thing about pricing for all different. You're right.
Yeah.
There's stuff on copies, the kind of paper, whether you have pictures. All right. So, but still, it
It's,
doesn't seem like it's.
It could start at, for 250 copies of a novel, it can start at, maybe $700 and go into the thousands,
Okay.
depending on whether it's a 500-page book.
Well, I notice on here a lot of your prices are for 10, 20 copies. Most people start with that more or
We
less.
encourage people to start with a short run.
Okay, and then see.
Just to make sure that they're happy with it. You can share it with some friends first, and then you can do a bigger run and put it in the stores.
So once the book's published, now here's the key to everything, because we were talking about this before you started. How do the people get them sold? I mean, this is the great mystery. I know you work at the Book House. You were saying business these days isn't really doing too good. So why do you think people are adding more to the book world? What do you think the secret is to maybe marketing these kind of books as opposed to, obviously, the front page review on the New York Times on Sunday?
Well, the bottom line is that it has to be a good book inside. The content has to be good. It has to engage a perfect stranger that will pick it up, look at it, say, hey, I'm interested in this mystery, this subject, this World War II memoir, and buy it even though they're not related to the person. And that's the hardest hurdle, really, it's word of mouth. I mean, it's how Stephen King got started, and every other blockbuster author out there. It's if the book is really good, it will generate buzz, it'll generate word of mouth, and it'll sell. I mean, there's a book on the bestseller list right now by Brunoni is her last name. It's called The Lace Reader.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
That was,
and she started out as print on demand. And
that started as a print on demand?
and just
Okay.
the local traffic in the Salem area in the Massachusetts area was so strong that the buzz got out there, and finally an editor in New York picked up on it and said, hey, this book has
Okay.
got terrific potential and needs to reach a wider audience.
Well, it is popular. I know it's for our library. We had to buy 4 copies of that
Sure,
book. So.
it's a good book. It's a good book, but that's how she started. And, I think that's hitting the
Yeah.
lottery. But
So it's
it does
possible.
happen,
It is
yeah.
possible for a book to go on to.
And we have had some of our customers go on to get an agent or, have publishers actually be interested and, they actually have contact and they're saying, keep us in mind for your second book
Okay.
and things like that.
So why don't you have a whole slew here. Why don't you talk about some of your books that you've published and just in general, maybe people can.
I brought a bunch of different ones that are all kind of different sizes and shapes.
Well, you could hold them up and just
Sure.
give us just an example of sort of the kinds of things you guys do.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
this one is actually kind of like
It's a
one way of doing books with us. He actually brought us all the files. It was ready to print. He had someone do the formatting for him.
and is that a poetry book?
No, it's
Oh,
actually,
it's a novel, okay.
Yeah, it's a novel. It's a pretty short novel, but it's actually his third book.
Okay.
And so he actually has his own publishing company, Mohawk River Press.
Oh, is that the guy that lives out in Amsterdam?
I think.
Or-
No,
I
it's
think I know
not
that.
Amsterdam.
Okay.
But
And then you guys print them for him?
yeah, we printed it for him. So he actually has his own publishing company. But he brought us everything ready to go, and we just
Okay.
did the printing. So, and then the other option is that, you give us a disc, and this one has photos in it. So he gave us a disc with 20 photos
Mm-hmm.
and 20 poems, and we did all the layout and cover design, and then it still goes to
Okay.
print. And this is actually our best-selling book. And this also comes down to marketing because John has a pretty well-read blog. So
Okay.
he mentions it all the time on the blog and links to our online store. So he sells a lot of the books that way.
So some of your authors, like the first guy there,
Mm-hmm.
they have their own. This is where you're talking about you publish for other people more or less.
Right.
Okay. I noticed you have a book here by Alice
Begley.
Alice Begley, yes.
who I know.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to
sure,
work at the
historian.
Gilliland Library.
Yeah,
And she used to always come down to the Gilliland Library, and she lives in Altamont.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice lady. What is
And it's a collection of her writings
Okay.
over the years, and she just, I've known her in the book house for years.
Yes, all right,
and,
yes, very nice lady.
And so she went over and met with Melissa, and she put all of her writings
Okay.
under cover and did a great job and has been selling it
She
tons
wrote
of
a
copies
play
of it.
too about
She did a very
the play's
interesting
kind of
play.
thing, yeah,
Yeah,
about
play's real interesting.
school. Is it
Yeah.
schoolcraft? Is
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So
And this one, Good to Be Here by Judy Barnes, she's the bon vivant around Troy and Albany, and lots of people know her, but this is a collection of essays, kind of poetry, and in between, and quite a few of these have already been read on NPR and WAMC, so she built an audience before she actually put this book together, and she's probably up to 1,000 copies on this.
Now, is that
Yeah, yeah.
the 1,000 copies? Is that through her work or your guys' work that it's been selling? Or
Oh, no, her work. Oh, no,
Okay.
she's been pounding the pavement for this book,
Okay.
and this is a prime example of the content of the book is excellent.
okay.
So somebody that doesn't know her will read it and get perfect satisfaction out of it, and they go on to tell somebody else that this is a really good collection. It really has some universal meaning, and
Okay.
and she did a great job. This one here is interesting because this one we did through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and actually someone through Make-A-Wish fronted the money to do this book for Lindsay, who has I don't believe it's a terminal condition, but it's a pretty serious condition.
I'll make a wish. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
they,
the Make-A-Wish.
they grant a wish for people
Yeah,
with.
and Lindsay always wanted to put she had written a book when she was younger, and she always wanted to put it into print.
That's her wish is to get her book.
And that was
published.
it.
her
That's,
wish was to be an accomplished author.
All right.
That's
Well,
right,
that's
so.
and
Right.
how old is she?
She's 20? No?
Yeah, she's
Really?
actually in college in Boston now. So we
Okay.
actually worked with her when she came home from breaks and things.
Okay. Well, that's a nice.
Yep, and she
Story
did.
there.
She did a great job. She had a signing at the book house, and we had 100 people or so, and
More than it was
yeah, more
like
than that.
250
Yeah,
people.
Yeah,
it was
right.
great.
Yeah, it was terrific. And we also do we do a lot of facsimile editions, so you can go to your local historical society and see if they would like to do a book on the history of the community, of whether it's the local rural village or another book on Colonie, and help work with the historical society to bring together all the photos and the content, and then we scan them and we print them, and there you go.
We printed, I don't know if you guys did this, because I'm trying to remember, the library, we printed this book on the history of Wolf Road.
Oh, we didn't print that. We sold it at the book house, though.
But it was amazing that there was an example, I think, we sold them in the library here. We sold like over 500 copies.
Sure.
And then all the bookstores, like you guys, were all calling, they all wanted like 50 copies. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, there's a very, very strong demand on anything of local history.
Well, that was one of my questions. One of the,
local history is great, yeah.
Not just for you guys, but for people who do this, it seems, I don't want to say it's 100%, but a lot of these books have a local interest, whether it's a local author for a novel or a history or what percentage of your 120 books have a local interest, would you say? Local meaning, say the Capital District.
I'd probably say 75 or 80%. And a lot of that actually is because these books don't have a large enough market for a large publisher to actually care about. Really, there's not enough people in Albany because it doesn't have a greater national appeal for a publisher or even an international.
Okay.
And we've actually had several authors that had books published by major publishers, and then because of the publishing industry having some drastic changes the last decade or so, have actually self-published subsequent books.
So they may be sort of a name author, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, people that sell tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of books end up self-publishing their next book.
So now, do you? I know obviously this is, if people are willing to pay to get their book published, obviously that's your business, but do you sort of accept anyone who walks in the door with their book, or do you have do you have some? I mean, I'm saying you're dealing with the public. I don't know.
We don't make editorial judgment.
If someone wants a book and they're willing to pay, you'll publish it.
Right. We don't make any snobbish decisions.
Right. Although we have always said that if the book was particularly misogynistic or the person was kind of a zealot of some sort, we kind of draw a line.
Okay.
And we haven't done any porno, nor do we plan to. So.
Well, let's see. One thing I found very interesting on the webpage, the TroyBookmakers.com. I'll keep saying that because it's really got great information on there for you would-be authors. But books that aren't copyrighted, like that's run out, like an old Huckleberry Finn or the Scarlet Letter. I did not know this, but if I wanted to go in and make my own edition of the Scarlet Letter,
sure,
I could.
Yep. Go right to Gutenberg.com. The website that has about 10,000 public domain titles, and
you could use that.
Sure,
you could download that text.
Absolutely, and it's something that every high school teacher should be thinking about. Is that you can pick out the book that you want, and then write your own prologue or epilogue or essay questions or worksheets that you might want to put in the book.
Okay.
And then we would just download Huck Finn or whatever, and add the teacher's notes.
Well, you can't.
Print it up for them, and 30 kids have a custom book by their teacher. Yeah.
You can't change the text. I mean, you can't change the text or anything.
No.
But we can insert.
Yeah, you can insert. Okay. You can add stuff to it.
Really?
And that's actually what a lot of our historic reprints and facsimile editions are. We do things that are of local interest. You
mean like a facsimile of a book maybe we have in our library downstairs? You could
we would take it and scan it. Yeah,
okay.
We would scan it and reformat it if needed to be reformatted, and bingo, that book's back in print. Maybe it's only 10, 20 copies, but it's enough to keep the library market satisfied.
Have you done any of those?
Sure. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know.
Yeah, we don't have an example here, but we've done particularly for Western Massachusetts. We've done about.
Well, and that's what this one is.
Yeah, this right here.
That's a facsimile. Okay.
Yep.
And we've done about 4 or 5 of those, haven't we?
Actually more than we've actually done almost 10 at this point.
10,
And we're working with Historic Society right now that's doing facsimile editions of books that they had put out in the 70s. So they own the rights, but they don't have any of the files anymore. So we're working with them to get those back in print as well.
You just like scan them. I know one thing in the library here, we have like a local history collection. These are all very old books, like the history of St. Mary's Parish in Waterville, and they're actually, if you skim through them, they're interesting books, but someone could come in and if they wanted to make their own copies of a book like that, they could do that.
Yep.
You wouldn't need permission or anything to...
It really depends when it's from,
Oh, okay.
because, things before 1930 are, depending on them, on what it is, they're usually in public domain at this point.
Oh, okay.
And we actually had a woman who was from Kansas, and she actually did just 20 facsimile edition books of a 400-page history of that county, because her family was all from there. So like every 20 pages, her family was mentioned.
Oh, okay.
So, she went through all the proper channels and got the permission from the publisher to reprint it, because they weren't going to reprint it, but she really wanted to have it for everyone in her family.
Well, this sounds amazing. You said only 4 people work over there? I don't know. This sounds like there's a lot going on over there.
There's a lot going on, yeah.
Let's see.
Busy.
I was going to ask you one other thing here before we have time here. Are your authors, are they sort of happy with, if it's published, say, in the Capital District in Western Mass, are they happy with that, or do some of them really hope to somehow go on and have it published by...
Well, I think all authors
Yeah, of
hope
course.
that-
Well, I know, that's...
Yeah.
I didn't...
But absolutely, there's people, a lot of not a lot, but many of our authors really aspire to something bigger, and this is just a stepping stone
Yeah.
for them. And that's another great thing about the Troy Bookmakers is that we don't maintain any rights to the printings that we do. So at any time...
What does that mean? I mean...
Well, there's a lot of print on demand or places online that they seem like they do the same things that we do, except that, you read the contract carefully and they take the rights to your book for the next 7 or 10 or 20 years. So even if you do get a good deal because you're doing all this legwork and selling the book locally, that company gets basically all the money from it,
Right.
and you don't.
Yeah.
So if Alice wanted to go take her book and publish it, you don't have any rights or anything, okay?
Yep, nope, she owns the disc, she can take it anywhere she wants to have it reprinted, but, there are, plenty of instances where we have people that have delusions of grandeur about where their book is going to go, and, most of the time I can talk them down to a realistic level of expectation for where their book is going to go, but it's very satisfying for me to see that people, everybody's got a book inside
Yes,
of them.
that's the old...
And I like to see that even though it may not be the most perfectly written book in the world, it's still their book, and they've done it, and it's an accomplishment. It still is an accomplishment.
Oh, yes, I think. What do you think the future is, not just for Troy Bookmakers, but for this publishing on demand? Do you think it's, you were talking before, how business isn't doing too well at the moment in the book world, do you think this is the future, or?
Yeah, I do think it is the future. Yep, I think we're kind of on the...
with the future, someone's going to come in, if they want the latest Stephen King book, you just print it in the back at the book house and bring it out?
Well, that's part of the problem with the whole digital age in New York is that they have these huge inventories in their warehouses in Maryland or New Jersey of all these books, and they've got wonderful backlist. But maybe not everybody wants to read James Michener's Hawaii anymore, but it's a fabulous book. So they could come into my store and say, look, I want James Michener's Hawaii, and I say, go pick up your dry cleaning, come back in an hour.
That might take more than 8 minutes, I think.
Yeah, and come back in an hour and we'll have that book for you. And that's something that we're really about ready to work out with the New York market.
Really? That's...
Is basically, they ship us the files of books and we do it right there on the premises, and we have a satisfied reader walking out the store.
Well, Susan and Melissa, this has been a fascinating look into the publishing world, and thanks for coming by. And the TroyBookmakers.com, we'll put it under the screen here when so people can go to the website. For all the would-be authors out there, they can hopefully get your... one of your authors, Ed Chevret, has been here. I talked to him, and he wrote a very nice little book, and he's someone who's very happy with his book. So I know some of your, and I know Alice. So anyway, thanks for coming, and maybe we'll see you again in the future.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's it today for Getting to Know You. We've been talking to Susan Novotny and Melissa Batalin from the Troy Bookmakers.